G'day Year 11 and welcome to another YouTube clip. Today we're going to be taking a look at ethical business behaviour. Why does this make me nervous? And this is part of the management processes subtopic of business management. Ethical business behaviour. Ethics are standards that determine what is acceptable and unacceptable behaviour. Ethics involves a study of moral issues and choices. It is concerned not with legal obligations, because the law is what you have to follow or you face punitive damages and you can be sent to prison or fined, whereas ethical is about what is morally right or wrong, and all the shades of grey in between. In many decisions involving ethical questions, it is sometimes difficult to give a definitive answer as to what's right and what's wrong. That's what we talk about with these shades of grey. You know, in the real world, things are not always so straightforward. Humans make slight errors, people are human, not surprisingly, and ethics is this often area of grey. Now, it depends upon the individual circumstances surrounding the situation. It is the job or the role of management to be aware of potentially ethical issues and act in an appropriate way. Businesses have really started to understand that customers will vote with their feet. What does that mean? It means that if a business is seen to be shifty, seen to maybe even follow the law correctly, but bend the law, manipulate the law, use creative accounting, be a bit dodgy, act unethically, then they're less likely to go to that business. They vote with their feet by going to a competitor. All right. If the business doesn't act in an ethical way, as we said, competitors will win. It is therefore in a business's long-term best interest to act in an ethical manner. Ethical issues. Within the business, the following ethical issues regularly occur. And if you're asked to write an essay or a short answer response on business and ethics, and to give some examples, these are the things you should be talking about. A business should act with fairness and honesty. They should have respect for people. They should make sure they take into account conflict of interest. They should make sure in terms of financial management, things are done professionally, and they should also make sure they've got truthful communication. All right. Fairness and honesty. What are we talking about with acting in a fair and honest way? Businesses must obviously obey all laws and regulations. As well, society expects business people to tell the truth and avoid using misleading or deceptive information. Employees expect to be dealt with honestly and fairly. For example, a business might promise to promote an employee. Then the business should honour this commitment to the employee, except in major exceptional circumstances. Customers and suppliers also would expect to be treated honestly and fairly in all their business dealings. Again, an example, if a business arranges for a delivery of certain items and promises to pay within a set period of time, then the business should honour this commitment to the supplier. This is making sure that you're acting honestly and fairly to your customers, your suppliers, and your employees. The second example you can use when talking about ethical practices is respect for people. Respect for people. If people, or business rather, owners treat their staff with respect, then you would also expect employees to act ethically as well. Occasionally, a business may become aware of an unethical practice by one of their workers. This can place the business in a difficult position, especially if the worker is important to the successful operation of the business. At other times, an employee may be placed in a difficult ethical position by other employees. For example, an older employee decides to play a practical joke on a young apprentice. Sometimes these practical jokes get out of hand and may develop into serious harassment or negligence cases. Other serious workplace ethical issues may involve a situation where confidential information is not kept secret, obligations are not fulfilled, or subtle forms of discrimination occur. So with all of this stuff, you need to respect other people. You need to have fun at work, but it is that fine line, those shades of grey, whereby you need to have a culture in your business where you respect people, you don't belittle them, you don't discriminate against them. Conflict of interest, another ethical problem for businesses. A conflict of interest occurs when a business takes advantage of a situation or piece of information for his or her own gain rather than for the employer's interest. Such conflicts can occur when gifts or payments are offered. There's a fine line between what is regarded as a gift and what can become a bribe. Now, often at the end of year 12, keep this in mind, year 11, not long to go, get saving for my end of HSC present. Okay, and I often get like watches and different bits and pieces. Technically, if it's $50 or more, I'm meant to declare this and let the principal know. Of course, every time I do that. But you can imagine if some student, start of year 12, their family gives me $500 and just says, thank you for teaching my son or daughter in year 11. You know, they've done very well. You've done a good job. Here you go, sir. Here's $500. There is no expectation. There is an expectation that I should continue to give them good grades. The more the presence and the higher they get in value, the more it can be seen to be a bribe. And so that's a conflict of interest. And for that very reason, principals have to declare to their bosses and teachers have to declare to the school principal any gifts that are given. So that if they are too great, we have to not accept them, okay, or the principal will make a decision whether it's appropriate because there's a conflict of interest. Everyone wants lots of money from people, and if you get paid $10,000, then you are more likely to do the wrong thing and to give a kid a better mark than what they deserve. And that's where the conflict of interest comes in. You need to have in place processes and procedures to minimize that. Financial management. Businesses have ethical and legal responsibilities in relation to financial management. In recent years, unethical practices have been highlighted and increasingly questioned. Taking into account the Banking Royal Commission was much needed. There are growing calls for codes of behaviour to regulate the activities of businesses in relation to financial management. It's generally accepted that financial management decisions must reflect the objectives of business and the interest of shareholders and all stakeholders in general. An area which is ethically considered important is the valuing of assets. All financial records should be regularly audited, which means checked, and especially external audits should take place to make sure there is no misuse of funds, fraud, or theft by workers. Now, truthful communication is another important ethical thing to look at for businesses. Advertising can represent real ethical dilemmas. False or misleading advertising is not only unethical, it's also illegal. Terms such as special, sale, low fat, light, they can be misleading. For example, what does the word special really mean when a product's on sale? Most consumers would take this to mean that the item is for sale at a cheaper than normal price. However, this may not necessarily be the case. The business owner may interpret the word special to mean the product is distinct or a particular character and not to do with it being the cheaper price. The two interpretations can be confusing, and it's the ethical job of a business to make sure they don't use these misleading terms and words. Okay guys, thank you again for listening, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.